In this course, I'm going to be teaching you how we are going to use R-Shiny. R-Shiny is a framework developed in R that enables users, such as data scientists, data analysis, to showcase the analysis to people. So with R-Shiny, you don't need to have the knowledge of HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, or any front-end or back-end software to develop a web app. Within a few lines of code, you can get started and develop a simple web app to a complex web app. R-Shiny gives you the opportunity to create dashboards and communicate your analysis. You can also communicate complex models to users and also allow users to use your dashboard to perform analysis on their own. In this lecture, I'm going to be showing you how we are going to install the Shiny framework in R. So we come first of all, hope you already have your R Studio open. You already have your R environment open and set up. So you go to your console. When you go to your console, you type the code install.packages, then quotation mark Shiny. So you can see it's installing. This is installing Shiny. You are going to have things like this shown. So you can finally see that R Shiny has already been successfully installed. So now if you want to use the framework, you just what's called library Shiny. So you can see that what Shiny is already what installed, and you run it, control enter. So our R Shiny has already been installed. Version, you can see it says package Shiny was built under R version 4.2.1. So this is already indicating that what R Shiny has already been installed. So in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how you can set up your working environment or your R Shiny, your web app directory. So how you can start by creating your web app directory in the next lecture. In this section, I'm going to be taking you on how you can get started with R Shiny. So we are going to be building a simple web app. This web app, what it actually does is that you select a data set. It allows the user to select a data set from a list of data sets. We are going to be using the dataset package in base R, and it will give you the output. That's the output, as the first output will be the summary of the data set, while the second output is going to be a table of the data set. So just a simple web app that does these two functions, gives you the summary of your data set and also the table of your data set. So I'm going to be practicing how you can build the user interface and also create the server side of this simple web app in this section. So now I believe you have already installed and loaded the Shiny framework. So in this lecture, I'm going to show you how you are going to set up your projects. So how we are going to start your web app projects, how we are going to create the projects file, and also how you are going to set up the working directory. So there are various ways which you can set up your web app working directory, the Shiny project. The most simplest, which is actually what I'm going to show you, is for you to go to the File tab, click on the File tab, and you click on New Project. When you click on New Project, it's going to show you a screen, which is loading by now. So we are going to get a wizard as mine. So you click on New Directory, and you can see various project types here, but we're interested in the Shiny application. So when you click on Shiny application, then here you give your directory name. So you can give it my first Shiny project. So then you choose the directory you are going to save it. So if I click on browse, I'm actually going to save it on my desktop. So I will click on my desktop and save it on that. So you can see this is the directory or the folder. So anywhere you can save your project file in any directory on your desktop. So this is where I want to look for my folder, I want to look for my project. So I'll just go to my desktop and see it there. So I'll now click on create the project. So it's actually loading. So now this is your Shiny project. So you can now see in this environment window, you can see my first Shiny project, which is your R project, and you can see that it has automatically created a file for you called app.r. So it is in this app.r you are going to write the script that is going to run your Shiny web app, this is the name of the file, which is app.r. So now let's clear the screen. So I'm going to explain it. So I've already cleared the screen. So you can highlight all of them using Ctrl A and backspace. So it's going to clear the screen for you. So now I'm going to show you the Shiny boilerplate. So if type Shiny app and you want on your keyboard, you press Shift Tab. After pressing Shift Tab, you can see that it has in the first line of code there is the library Shiny. So which you can run again because we are on a new project. So you have to run this library Shiny again. So if I run this library Shiny again, Control Enter. So the Shiny app has already been run by R on my console, as you can see. So now this is the boilerplate. So anytime you want to create or write a Shiny app, this is the code that I'm going to be starting with. You first of all load your R Shiny framework. So these are two variables you can see, UI and server. This UI, which in front-end development they call the user interface or client side. So anything you can see on the web app, any interactivity on the web app is actually based on the UI. The buttons, the images, the scrolls, all is what designed on the user interface. Why this is the server side, which in web development they call the back end. So it is in this back end you actually your variables are defined, most of the variables you use and most of the things that the clients can't actually see that happen at the back. So it is in this server it actually happens. Why this is the Shiny app UI server? If you are to run this, so let's say I'm to highlight all now and what Control Enter. So you can see I already have my app in front of me. So it's going to open your app. So this is your what app. It is actually a blank screen because this is a boilerplate code. We haven't written anything yet. So you can either highlight it and what on your keyboard you press Control Enter, or you can see here. Let me actually close the app. So once I close the app, so you can actually also click here and say what to run the app. So these are the two methods you can use to run your app. In this lecture, I'm going to be showing you how we are going to create or build your user interface. So you can see, hope you already have your boilerplate set up as this. So first of all, now you are going to create your first R Shiny web app. So what I want you to do, I'm going to type hello. You are going to type hello world in the user interface. Then you want to click on run the Shiny application. So you can see hello world has already appeared. So I think now with this, your understanding of the user interface should have improved. So now let's close it and let's create. So we are going to create a simple Shiny app. So what the Shiny app is going to do is that it's going to take a table from some of the inbuilt data sets in R, and also give us the summary about it, or give us the outputs about it. So now I want you to clear this, and before we continue, I want you to install, if you don't already have it on your R, I want you to install the package datasets. Or let me search, let me see if it's actually since it's an inbuilt package with R. So let's see datasets. So the R datasets package. So this should be an inbuilt package on your R. So you should just search for it and see it. So see the package dataset. So you now load. It's already loaded because it's already showing tick. So library datasets. So the package is already loaded. So we are going to use this dataset in such a way that anytime we select a dataset in this user interface, then the web app is going to give us the summary of the dataset. So what we do first now, we type select inputs, the function select inputs. So this select input is a Shiny option. Anytime you see a Shiny function with input, it means it is an input control. So this allows you to control the inputs you give to your web apps. And anytime you see a Shiny web function with output, it is an output control, which means anything you give to it, you are telling it to output that. So now in this select input, we first of all let me show you the help from the help function of the select inputs, so you can see how it works. So now this is the documentation of the select input. So you can see the arguments in the select input. So this is your what? First of all, you give your input ID. So this is what is going to be showing anytime this, and if you give this argument is what is going to show on your web app as the ID, then you give the label. So the label is what's going to show as the label. So let us start with the input ID. So that will show you what I mean. So when I give the input ID, I say input ID. Input ID is equals to what? Data sets. So leave the input ID. Then I'm also going to give the label. Then I'll give my choices. So this is what is going to what? These choices, if you go here, you can see the list of values is going to what select from. So from this input now, this choice is going to give the what list of values to select from. So what we want this app now to do is that it's going to list all the data sets available inside the package data sets. Then you now what select from it. So let me give it. We now use what list ls and what package data sets. So we are telling it to what that in these choices you should what select data sets from the package data set. So that is what we are trying to tell. Well, that is what we are trying to explain in this what line of code. So let's run the app. So you can see on our user interface, you can see all the data sets available in the what. These are all the data sets that are available in the package data sets. So you can see how we use select input to list. You can see how we use select inputs to list the data sets in the data sets packages. So if we are now to continue and let's say we want to select a data, then we can now work with what the data set. So now the next function I'm going to be treating now also under this fluid page, which is inside the user interface. So before I forgot, I did not forget this fluid page. So this fluid page actually declares the client side. I told you this is the boilerplate of the code. So anything we're going to write in the user interface is going to fall under this fluid page function. So let me go and let me close the web app. So if we are to check and the documentation of the fluid page, you can see create a page with a fluid layout. So this function allows us to create our web app pages. So anything we're going to define, we're going to be doing that on the fluid page. So the next function we're going to put in our user interface is going to be the verbatim text output. Verbatim text output. So the verbatim text output from this name at the end, which is output, it is an output control. So it controls what appear on the web app pages. So if I should check, let's check for now. Let me show the documentation of the verbatim text output. So you can see it renders the output of anything that we've already maybe done on the server side. So anything I'm going to put now, I will explain it much more better when we go to the server side. So we're just going to put summary for now. And the next function is going to be table output. So this table output is also going to render a table. So table output renders tables, while verbatim text output renders code. So we also have text outputs. We also have text output, it renders text. So these are the output controls. So by the time you just see the output at the end of a function, you're supposed to know that an output control. You see input is an input control. So under the table output, we that table. So you should know by now that by saying this summary, it means that we already have a variable, we already named a variable summary, which is going to come subsequently, and also that of table. We also already named a variable table, which is also going to come subsequently. So we are now telling our user interface that verbatim text output should output summary, while table output should output the table, which we are going to declare subsequently. So if we should run this app now, let us run the app. Okay. Same, so we might have I think an extra bracket. So it's a good practice to make sure you try and space your codes so you can differentiate it. So you can see this code belongs to the select input. This code belongs to the what verbatim text output, and also this side belongs to the what table output. So now let's run the web app and see. So you can see what we have on our web app list of packages. Though all those ones are not going to show by now. So till we go to the server side, which I'm going to explain a bit in the next lecture, which I'm going to explain in the next lecture, then you can see how what you can now understand fully how all this other function works. So let me revise it, let me come again. This is the user interface. So anything I'm going to be writing on the screen, anything that's going to be displaying for me on the screen, the buttons, the scrolls, the text that will be appearing on the screen, they are actually all going to be defined under this variable called UI. And anything I'm going to be doing, any function I'm going to be there for, any activities that's going to be happening in my app, maybe any analysis I've run, and how I'm going to make it appear on the user interface is actually going to be happening on the server. So I'm going to explain all of them in subsequent lectures. I will explain the user interface, how you can design it, and I'll also explain what the server side, how you can also design the server side. So when you call your app, this is what you use. The code is called the Shiny app UI, server. And also if you want to load it, I told you that you have two ways. You can either highlight it and control enter. Control enter, you can see I've already have it open here, so I can close it. Or you can click on this place, run app. It's going to get it displayed for you. So that is all about creating your app directory. In the next lecture, I'm going to be talking how you can get started with designing your user interface. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about the server side of the web app. So the server side is actually where the behaviors of the web apps are controlled. So let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine if you go to a restaurant and you ordered for a sandwich. If you are someone that don't cook, you will get this example right. So you ordered for a sandwich and the sandwich was brought to you, or you ordered for a burger and it was brought to you. And you don't know how it was made, but you can see the burger, you can feel the burger, and you actually tested it to see whether it was delicious or not. But the thing is that you don't know how it was made, you don't know what was used to make the sandwich or burger, or maybe you have never heard of an information that gives you how the sandwich was made. You don't know who cooked it, and you don't know in which kitchen it was made. So this is how the web app also works. The UI is just like your sandwich, what you see, what you can test, what you can feel. While the server side is what happens to the sandwich, how it was made, in which kitchen it was made, who made it, information like that. So that is a simple example which you can use to understand the difference between the UI and the server side. So unlike the UI, the server side takes a function inputs and outputs and also session. So basically in the server side, we can have various types of inputs. We can also have various types of outputs. So what we usually use to differentiate our output is what we use a dollar sign. So for example, now if you look at this UI now, if you look at this UI, you can see that we want our app for the user to be able to select a data set from various data sets in the package data sets. So which means that for us to be able to display those the summary of the data sets, then we are going to run the summarize function that is in base R. We are going to run it on the data set to get the summary, which is going to be an output. While the input is going to be the data sets that the client that is interacting with the app has selected. Now, for example, if I want to give the output of the summary, so I told you that you can have various outputs. Now, how do you now differentiate the various outputs with a dollar sign and we say summary? So this summary is what we put in this function here, table verbatim text output. This is what we are going to use this name to direct the UI that this is our summary. If I'm to change this name now, maybe I'm to change it to another name, then it's not going to display any It's not going to display any summary for me. So this summary is what is going to refer to this reference to. This summary here is going to reference to this summary variable that was created in this place. So in this place, you can now define that, okay, this is how the app is going to get the summary of the data set. So now, I'm going to declare the summary. So I'm going to use the render print. Render print is a function that is used to print an output. So it's going to render our output to to the user interface. So I'm now going to declare a variable called data set and use my get function. So can you see now also, I told you that we can have various kind of input, just like the output also. We use the dollar sign to differentiate the various input and also the various output. So if this UI is now going to refer this input in this place now is now going to reference to the UI. Just like the UI was referencing to the output to get the summary, this input is also going to reference to the UI here to get the input. So I'm now going to say input data set, comma, package data sets. So you can see now that we have wrote use our get function to tell to get our data. They will now say summary of data set. Now let me run this web app for you to see what I've actually been talking about since. So now you can see the data set. Let me select, for example, the air passenger data set. You can see a summary about it. Let me select another data set, Euro stock market. You can see a summary about it. Now let me show what I was talking about the outputs. Let me change it now. For example, I'm going to change this to let me just remove this Y and just put, let me just put summarize. So now I'm changing this, which actually is not even reference to this because we don't have any variable called summarize here. So I want to show you that if I'm to change this to another word and I don't have a variable called summarize in this place, it's not going to display anything for me. That is to show you the relationship between the user interface and the server side. So you can see now I have no summary. So this is how it works. These two are connected, user interface and the server side. If a variable is in the user interface and it is not in the server side, then you cannot see it on your web app. Same thing too also, if an input is in the user interface and you didn't use it on your server side, you can't see it. Now this is for the summary. Now let me also output the table. So the same thing too also, it's also an output. So the table is an output, but we will use the dollar sign to differentiate it. So and we already have a variable table. So we are going to declare this same variable table so that the user interface can reference it in the server side. So it's now going to be output table. They will now say render table. So this render function, I'm actually going to share you the link to the cheat sheet, the Shiny cheat sheet, so you can be able to see the functions and also and check for the documentation on the R Studio. This render table renders only table, render prints renders only it renders other text too also. So render table renders table while render prints. Let me show you the documentation so that you can get it better. So let me actually close the app. So let me show you render print. So you can see render print here is prints the result of expression. While render text, we also have render text. Yes, render text. It renders a text, a string, a string. Render print is equivalent to print, just like your regular function, print function. So we have a lot of most of this render. Those starting with the word render, we have render print, we have render text, we have render table. So from the name, you can know actually render is mostly used in the server side to bring out to render what you have already declared maybe in your user interface. So now I'm going to use render table. So now with render table, I'm actually I want to render out a table based on this data set. So I want to render the table of this data set. So it's just like, okay, we have summarized our data. I also want to see how my data looks like. So I'm now going to say data set and get, just the same get that we used there. So this input is going to reference to the user interface to get the inputs. Then package from data sets. Then I'm now going to call the data set. So now let me get this app running. Okay. Seems I might have done, there will have been an error. Okay. Data sets. Okay. Okay, this is where the mistake is. Can you see I used an S? So you can see what's happening. It returns an error for me. So let me run the app again. So this is it. Okay, so you can see what's the what table. So there is one thing earlier on when I changed the name, I didn't change it back to the what variable we have in our what server side. So let me change it. So this is it now. Let's reload the app. So this is our app now. So this app now, anytime we select a data set, air passengers, it shows us the summary and also shows us what in the table. If I also select another one, attitude, you can see the summary of the data sets, and you can also see what you can also see the table. RShine is a very easy and simple framework, very easy to get going. Though it might take time, you just have to make sure you know most of the functions that I will use. I'll be explaining them in a bit. So I'm going to be using various projects. I'll start from simple projects. I'll be explaining how you can build some simple projects and also explain some of the functions. I can't take all the functions. We have a lot of functions, but with time, you'll be coming across popular ones like select input, verbatim text output, table output, render text. You are going to be using most of these functions a lot, and you have start building muscle memory as what you practice with time. This is a very easy framework. I don't want you to feel discouraged. It's very easy. You can build a very complex app with few lines of code and also without much logical thinking or logical reasoning. So you just need, it was designed to be easy to use. So you can just see how we built a simple web app using using our user interface and also our server side. So just a recap, just make sure you know that your user interface is all about what your client is interacting with, just like the sandwich example I gave earlier on. So the way your client is interacting with the sandwich is the way it's filling the sandwich is the sandwich soft. So that is your user interface. While the server side is like the cooking. So the behaviors that's happening inside the web app, what is happening, where is the web app actually getting information. So these are what's happening in the server side. So next I'm going to explain to you a particular technique that is used in RShine called a reactive expression, and you're going to see how it's going to be used. In this lecture, I'm going to be talking about a special technique in R that is usually used, and you should also try to get used to it because you come across using it a lot of times. So this technique is called reactive expressions. So in programming, it is always known to be a good practice for you to always use functions wherever you know you are going to repeat code. So you put your code in a function wherever you know there's a computation that is going to be likely to be doing a lot of times. So you put that code in a function instead of increasing the lines of code by repeating it all over. Same thing also applies to variables. We name variables just to also avoid repetition. So we are not friends of repetition when it comes to programming. But if you look at our app that we have actually built, you can see that we have repeated a line of code twice. The data set was called twice. We called the data with declared the variable data set twice. We declared it in the output summary and also declared it in the table output, which we are not supposed to actually do, because time will come when we will not just be only dealing with one variable, dealing with a lot of variables, and we want to make our work much more efficient. We want to make our work much more fast, and also save R's memory. So this is where reactive expression actually comes. In reactive expression, you don't need to declare a line of code. Using a reactive expression, you can declare a variable and use it in various outputs in your server side. So now I'm going to type another server side function, but this time around I'm going to be using a reactive expression. I'm still going to keep the previous one, but I will cut it when I want to run the web app. So we start by declaring the server side function, our inputs and our outputs, which I told you they could be various variable, and we use the $sign to separate to identify various outputs. The first output is going to be output summary, but we won't declare that now. We'll first out to declare our variable using the reactive expression. And you see we have a particular variable here, data set. That is what we are interested in. This data set is in the output summary output and also in the table output. So we now see data sets. So let me comment the code. So create reactive expression. So this is the reactive expression. So most of the time your reactive expression will always be the first, because you're going to be using it in what? In other, you are going to be using it in what? Your outputs. So data set, then you use the reactive function. This is the function that allows you to what? To create a what? A reactive expression. Always take note that this is unlike your regular functions, because this also has a what? Parenthesis inside the what? The curly brackets. That is what it has. It has a curly bracket inside the what? The round bracket. So anything you're going to write is going to what? Be between what? This. So now you can now say get input data set, then what? Package data set. So you can see that we have already used a reactive expression to declare our what? Variable data set, to avoid what? Repeating code, to also avoid declaring the variable twice. Now we now what? Start by declaring our summary output, which is what? Render text. Then we now say what? Summary, then what? Data set. Another thing to also note, the reactive variable is always declared like a function. So can you see it? Data set? So you can't what? Type this and say you are declaring, you want to use your reactive what? Expression. So you have to what? Call it like you are calling a function. So now the next we are going to what? We are going to what? Type the output table using what? Render table. Then we now say what? Data set. So mind you, always remember you are calling your reactive expression like you are calling a function. So now I'm going to cut this out, and what? Okay, it seems it was running earlier on. I'm going to what? Run the app. Okay, I made a mistake here, typographical error. So I was supposed to put what? A T there. Let me run it again. Okay, let me stop it and run it again. Okay, so now the function data of the table. So the summary is not actually coming out. Let's see. Okay, so it was actually there. I didn't see it. So you can see our app. This is the summary, and this is the what? The table. So we created this using what? Reactive expression. So just the same thing. It's just that in one server side we repeated code, and the other server side will now repeat. We now created the dataset variable twice. So just to take notes, a recap, always make sure that when you are calling a variable twice, maybe in another output and also in another output, instead of creating, imagine we have 5 outputs which are going to be using datasets. We can't just be calling datasets, data up to like 5 times. So we'll just use the reactive expression. With the reactive expression, it makes our work very easy and very much more efficient. You can see, once just declared, you just use it in your summary, you use it in your table. As I've already used it in the table, I've also used it in the summary. So just take notes, anytime you are going to be using a variable more than once in various outputs, you call or you create a reactive expression. This will make your work much more efficient. So this is one unique thing about R. This is the simplest case that you can find for the reactive expression. With time, you're going to be seeing how it's also going to be used in complex cases.